Do you know the Marvel Rivals characters, or are you an over-opinionated noob? Well, statistically, you're probably the latter, but there's nothing wrong with that. And today we're gonna look at exactly how wrong low elo players are about their favorite and least favorite heroes. If you're coming from my last tier list video, you'd probably assume that the rankings here will be the same, but that's not the case. I value accuracy, and that list represented the best rankings from blogs and popular Reddit posts, whereas this time I'm embracing the incorrectness and sampling 20 lists made by random players to represent the noobs. On the flip side, the pro ranking is decided purely objectively by using a tier list that samples high-level players' stats to determine character popularity. Just like last time, I'll calculate the average data for multiple lists as follows. If one list puts a hero in S, while another says B, the character falls into A, but then scale that up to 20 lists, 5 tiers, and an Excel spreadsheet. I am not doing this by hand. Before we dive into comparisons, let's get acquainted with the lists. Pause here if you want to see all the characters, but overall the pro list is pretty ideal for a hero shooter, placing most of the characters in A and B, indicating lots of solid playables. The noob list isn't far off distribution-wise, but you'll notice that lots of the bottom characters are pushed up, making A pretty packed. Once again, you can feel free to pause to get a closer look. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's compare these lists by looking at the overlap. Starting with S tier, only 2 characters managed to make it here. The biggest shield tank and the DPS with one of the biggest buffs to come in Season 1. It's really no surprise that both of these were voted in by noobs and pros alike. Next up, A and B tiers. None of these come as much of a surprise except for maybe Hela and Psylocke. I feel like a lot of low elo players see them as closer to S tier, but hey, the data placed them in A. C tier had my first big surprise. Iron Fist is practically unusable in high elo, so that part of it is obvious, but I would expect the average player to rank him higher, seeing how easily he demolishes most bronze and silver lobbies. Maybe my data's off, or maybe my assumption is just wrong. What do you think? Let me know in the comments and add this timestamp at the beginning so that others can join in. And while you're down there, consider subscribing or even just liking the video if you've enjoyed it so far. I love doing this sort of data analysis, and your support keeps the content coming. And finally, alone in D tier.
Do we really have to talk about her? I feel like it's pretty obvious.
Black Widow! Yay! But wait, don't leave the video yet. Seeing the lists doesn't mean we've truly seen the stats, so let's look one level deeper and see what we find. I think it's really interesting that the low elo group wasn't any more accurate in any specific tiers. There was a pretty universal 25 to 50% cut from every single tier, meaning they're no better at judging good characters than they are at judging bad ones. I did, however, notice that only one support made it through, but let me explain why this doesn't surprise me. I'd say this is closely linked to the fact that low elo players hate support. They'll refuse to learn any healers, then blame the players who do for everything. They know nothing about the role and therefore know nothing about ranking the characters. This was all super interesting to check out, and I honestly feel like it gave some great insight into where low elo decision making fails. If there's any data that I didn't show here that you wanted to see, let me know in a comment below. I might even make a video to check it out.